Right, what's happening, people, and welcome back to the Joey Knight Boxing channel. Welcome to my friend Brian, the True Geordie, who is going to speak today with me about the upcoming lightweight Misfits tournament, which is for the interim title.
It's the interim belt, mate, yeah. And this was my idea.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how this all came about. You're the brainchild of this tournament.
I was on to Mams and I was like, you know what? We could do an interim title tournament, make it really exciting. And then I realised my mate's in the tournament. And all of a sudden I had this feeling of like, fuck. Because like, it really is every man, like any man can win this. And the level is so high. For influencer boxing, this is I think that the highest level of boxing in a confined group of fighters, I think that we'll have ever seen. Yeah. So that was where I was like, at first I'm like, Joey's winning this. Yeah, Joey's winning this. And then I start seeing the lads coming in and you're like, fucking hell, this is serious. Like,
it's funny because I keep speaking to people that I know through boxing, that I've boxed with in the past. And like, I find myself having to try and convince them, like, by the way, I'm not a favourite here. This isn't a foregone conclusion, because I think the outlook on it is because I've done a bit before and not a lot of people from the sort of hardcore boxing background, you know, amateur boxers, pro boxers, unlicensed boxers, not all of them watch the Misfit stuff, yeah? It's a different audience a lot of the time. So the first initial thing, as soon as it's been announced, is like, oh yeah, Joey's winning this sort of thing. And I'm like, boys, we've got... 3 Golden Gloves winners in this tournament or something like this, and obviously the full lineup is now out. Some really exciting fighters in there,
mate. There's people with multiple, like several amateur fights, like years of experience. And when I've started looking into some of these guys, I'm thinking of that Rimu lad, Cray, yeah. He's been putting out boxing footage since 2018, consistently. He's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. You've got Yodi Gang, who's boxed many times at amateur level, looked really good on Misfits. Obviously, Waleed Shocks in the tournament. You could argue he might be the favourite for some people, because he really pushed Dean the Great all the way. And all right, Dean the Great, I think, showed he's probably the better fighter, but still, Waleed Shocks showed he's right up there. And obviously there's you and quite a lot of others. Like there's that street fighting lad, Baby Hulk, who I couldn't believe how many millions of views his street fights. Like, it's like that backyard stuff, MMA style. 43 million views on one of these fights, mate. It was mental.
Sort of the same background that Dean the Great came from as well. He was doing the street fighting type stuff. So yeah, it's mad. And I think like with any tournament, there's going to be upsets thrown up here. We've got... It looks from the colour scheme, and obviously people would have seen the posters that have gone out. It sort of looks from the colour scheme like you got the A seed guys, and then they're going to fight B seed guys. But I think people will realise that might not actually be the case once some of the fights.
I don't think there's.
As of the time of recording, we haven't.
As far as I'm aware. There's no seeding.
No,
it's just matchmaking. They're just like, okay, we'll put these together. It's who makes fun matchups. I think is the way it's going to go, or random. It might be random even, as far as I'm aware. But it's definitely not going to be like, from what I understand, anyone being favoritized, prioritized, anything like that. And I think that whoever wins this, Dean's going to be looking right over his fucking shoulder, because to come through this level of competition, let's take, for example, Waleed Shocks, right? We all know Dean got the better of him, but it was a rough ride, right, to get there. If someone goes and beats Waleed more convincingly than Dean did, you're thinking to yourself, well then, mate, you've got your fucking work cut out there, because we all know how you did, you know, so that it's going to throw up a lot of intrigue. How are you feeling coming into something as, you know, big time as this? Because this is a big, everyone's excited about this. It's a lot of hype.
I love it. I love it. I'm so buzzing for something like this, because do you know what's absolutely mad, right? The world works in very, very mysterious and weird ways. There was a time, right? And bearing in mind, going into this tournament, I'm probably like... the guy, I'd say I'm in the bottom 3 in experience, in how many fights I've had and stuff like that. I think from what I've looked at, there's only maybe 2 guys in the tournament that have had less fights than me. And I think that's Ace Musa, potentially, and the Tasmanian Devil. But other than that, you look at Baby Hulk, okay, they're in MMA. He's had more fights than me.
I think the Tasmanian Devil said he's been fighting 16, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, there's a funny story about me and the Tasmanian Devil, which we get to. But the point I'm making is most of these guys have had more fights than me.
Exactly.
And it's like, I get that stylistically, look, I looked good in my first fight. I was very happy with my performance in my first fight, but you can only box the man in front of you. And am I going to look as good when I'm in there with a more competitive level of opponent? Well, that's the beauty of things. That's what we're going to see, and that's what we're going to find out. I'm very confident going into the tournament going in, but also, look, I'm 29 years old. I'm sort of at an age in my life where I'm not like, I don't need to say things because I think it's the right thing to say. Like, we was having a conversation and I was saying about certain fighters, I'm like, oh, I'm a bit scared of him, you know. Doesn't mean I'm not going to fight him. I'm going to fight him. I'm looking forward to fighting him, but I'm a bit scared of him and quite comfortable with things like that. So I haven't got to sit here now and scream from the rooftops about how I'm winning this tournament and what I'm doing. The beauty of it is I know that stylistically there's probably not one fight. There's maybe one, and we get onto that. There's probably not one fight that isn't a good stylistic fight for me in this tournament and isn't a good fight that take away myself, isn't a good fight that the fans are going to love watching.
That's what I think we've got, because these lighter-weight guys, as Dean and Wally proved, are action-packed. It's non-stop, right? You know, the heavyweights at influencer level we've seen, they've struggled with the technique, we've struggled with the pace, whereas these lightweight guys, it's just, I mean, Tasmanian Devil's a great way to describe it because it is just non-stop action, right? And the thing I've got to give you credit for is, you know, as your mate and obviously as someone who's involved with Misfits, I'm like, yeah, we'll get another fight lined up. That's a step up from Most Wanted. Credit to him for having the balls to take the fight, but who's got a bit more experience than him to give you another test, but not quite, you know, totally at the top level yet. And then this idea came around, and Mams is suggesting all these fighters, and I'm like, bit quicker than what I thought. I go back to you and I'm like, mate, you might be able to get a title shot, but you've got to go through fucking hell to get there. And immediately he's like, yeah, sign me up. And
I think you've learned now to just accept things on my behalf.
Yeah, I'm trying to like hold you back. And Mams, you know, was like, yeah, we love that attitude at Misfits, you know.
Listen, let's imagine, right? And this is the one thing I'm confident in. I'm confident I win. I'm confident I beat all of these boys, but I'm very confident that I'm never in a boring fight. Every fight I've had so far, I've had, 10 odd fights or whatever, they've never been boring. None of my fights have been boring. So I'm very confident that win, lose or draw, the fans on Misfits are going to want to see me again. And if I'm going to fight those guys sort of maybe not good enough to get themselves into the tournament, but just below it, and maybe have fought some of the guys in the tournament, I can fight them on the way back down anyway. I can go in this tournament, and if I don't win it for, you know, whatever reason, then I can fight them after and maybe try and build myself back up. But I think that things are about seizing the opportunity, and I actually think that this, barring some of the KSI events, this could be one of the biggest things that Misfits has ever done. And I see Misfits putting on tournaments like this at all weight divisions.
I think they're getting excited by this idea. Yeah, they're talking about a light heavyweight version of it, maybe a cruiserweight or whatever as well. But I think it was the cruiserweight belt because KSI vacated. So this could be something that, because boxing, as you know, is so political. And it isn't a meritocracy. You know, a lot of the time it's who's going to earn the money and da-da-da-da-da. Whereas I think Misfits are creating a culture of you're not backing down to anyone and you're not allowed to. If you want to be here, you've got to be willing to entertain people. And we don't care about you losing a fight because we just want to see entertaining fights. And I think you know that. And that's what I appreciate about the Misfits fans. I think that they, ironically, have less of a like pompous attitude than what a lot of pro boxing fans do. Like, when you lose a fight, you're dismissed and done with. Whereas we're here, like people like B Dave, who, you know, I don't care if he wins or loses. I just want to see the lad get punched and punch people. You know, and it's great to watch. You know what I mean? So I think that this is exactly what people want to see. And I don't know, man. There are some dangerous guys in there. Who do you think is the favourite coming in?
Listen, if I'm to take myself out of the equation, even including myself, I don't believe I'm the favourite.
Or maybe name two guys who you think are the favourite then. Right,
okay. See, I don't want to come across the disrespectful to anyone here, but I would say for me, there's quite a clear-cut favourite. And then everyone else probably I'm putting a level below that, but I'm taking into account that I don't know the most about these guys, and maybe after one round of the first, you know, quarterfinals of the tournament, I'm going to change my mind. The favourite for me is Yodi Gang. He's the guy that I look at and I'm like, you've had the most experience. I've heard he's a Golden Gloves winner. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
I've heard he's had a lot of amateurs.
Yeah, a lot of amateur fights. And obviously we've seen him in there, albeit in the tag team match and whatnot, with Dean, with Walib. We've seen how he's boxed. So I think he'd be the favourite going into the tournament. I'll tell you one thing. If I had half of the fights that he's been rumoured to have had, I would hope I would be the favourite going into a tournament like this. Obviously, he had a few choice words to say about me, didn't he? He was tweeting about me.
What did he say? Because I didn't see that.
It was ironic, really, because he said that he'd beat the dog shit out of me. Now, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that's funny, because I've watched a few of your fights. I've never seen you beat the dog shit out of anyone. So I don't know why you're saying he beat the dog shit out of me. That was a bit of a weird one. That was a bit of a head scratcher. Listen, maybe, he's struggling for interest in some of his fights or something like that. Because let's be honest, he's a very good boxer. I've just given him the credit where it's due. His style's fucking boring, mate. His style's boring. So
I don't know, like in some of the fights I've seen, look, it's one thing to be defensively responsible. And I see it in his last fight, he boxed well. But as an entertainment spectacle, Misfits, like the whole point of Misfits is to put on an entertaining fight. And there was a point where you're thinking, you're outboxing him, but just step your foot on the gas, be more aggressive, show us, what you're really capable of. And look, it's easy for me to say because I'm not the guy in the ring, but I think in previous fights, lacking the eye of the tiger a bit has actually held him back. And ironically, when he was in that tag team fight, I think we've seen a bit more of it in that fight.
Yeah.
And then he went back to his sort of comfort zone in the follow-up. So,
well, I don't know. When I look at that tag team fight, I do look at it and I think, listen, horses for courses, get the job done however you want it to get done. But there was a lot of time he spent on the back foot in that fight as well, There was a sort of clip that went viral of him dodging 10 punches from Walid Sharks, and okay, cool, looks good. Walid isn't throwing 10 punches at me without me responding. So
you didn't punish him, So it looks good on the gram. But how effective is it, when you're not actually throwing anything back? Yeah.
But what I would say is a lot of fighters through history, a lot of guys I've boxed with, they don't look that entertaining. They get the job done. And I think in terms of a guy that I believe has probably got the best chance of getting the job done, he's now had a good run at this Misfits thing. He is a good fighter, by the way. Yodi is a very good fighter. Yodi's probably the most experienced man in this tournament, and he is a good fighter. But I think realistically, Yodi's going to need to do something like win this tournament to make himself that breakout star, because at the moment, there's sort of hardcore Misfits fans that want to see him in there with Dean, people that are excited to see him in there in the tournament, people that are backing him in the tournament. But I think I showed more in my debut. Yes, I accept it, against a much lower level guy than maybe Yodi's been fighting, but I think I drummed up more excitement in my debut than he has in all his fights so far. And the proof's in the pudding, because I'll tell you one thing, once I've had 4 fights, I very much doubt I'm going to be tweeting about a guy that's just had his debut saying, I beat the dog shit out of him. It's like, probably won't be looking at them guys until they're either calling me out or on the way up. So proof's in the pudding, man. Maybe he's reaching for a fight or two in here, and maybe we'll cross paths in that final or something. But there's obviously other guys that dangerous prospects in this tournament.
Yeah, I think I like the way Walid reads his opponents. He sort of, he caught Dean a good few times in their fights. I think he can see a shot before it's there. And the Cray lad, I'm very interested to see, because he looks like he's got quick hands. He looks explosive, and he seems to be fighting in like these backstreet situations, like they just have a fucking random ring with a bunch of people around. And I seen one of his last ones, and he did the business. Yeah, the other lad didn't look good though, and that's another thing. This is where I think I will change my opinion after round 1, when I've seen everyone fight with the gloves on in a Misfits ring, and I know the levels. I think I'll get a really good idea. Being impartial, obviously, I want you to win, but I'm not going to talk any shit, because I respect all the lads. But I agree. I think Yodi should be the favourite. I think, but like you've said, defensively fantastic, but I think to win this tournament, you're going to have to show a bit more than what he's shown so far.
There's so much uncertainty around probably 6 men in this tournament, right? People have seen me do some skillful moves, but that was against Most Wanted. Respect to him, but he's not of that calibre. Could I do it against a higher level opposition?
That's
I know the truth. I know the truth. I know that I can do it, and people that have followed my sort of boxing journey on the unlicensed scene will know that, I can do that against good guys, but the Misfits fans don't know that yet. You got guys like Little Cray. He looks brilliant. He looks really good. He looks like a machine sometimes. Yeah. But I've watched quite a lot of his fights, and I've never really seen him in there with anyone where I go, cool, you beat a good opponent there.
No, that's exactly what I thought. I thought, where's the resistance here? Yeah, of course you're the hammer and he's the nail.
Yeah.
But what happens when you become the nail
That's
of it?
it.
You know, and when that's not happening, it's very hard for me to know what your level is, and that's why I'm sort of waiting for round one before I start really going, all right, this is where...
The more sort of certainty you can have is Yodi Gang and Walid Sharks, because you know what both of them offer. I think Walid Sharks, a lot of the people are thinking of the favourite, and I do believe that one of the reasons people are thinking that is because they've seen him in those blockbuster fights. But being in that sort of occasion doesn't mean you're the best man in the division, doesn't mean you're the second best man in the division. It
Well,
means
actually,
you're one of
that's
the
my
best.
question about Dean. Dean the Great, right? I respect him. He's the champ. But equally, when you look at who he's beaten so far, there's a lot of guys in this tournament who I think are better than a lot of those guys, right? So, like, maybe Walid is definitely up there, but I think if I'm Dean, I'm looking at this tournament going, whoever wins this, they're going to be a hell of a test.
Listen, respect to Dean. I like Dean. Yeah. You know I like Dean. I've said this to you, but you know who Dean wants to win this tournament. Dean wants Walid to win this tournament. You know Dean wants Walid to win this tournament because I don't really think Dean wants any part of me. I don't really think Dean fancies the Yodi fight. I know he's been in there with him before. I don't really think he massively fancies that fight. If Cray comes through and blasts through all of us all of a sudden, is Dean going to want that, or is he going to want to target one of these older MMA guys? I'm not sure. But what I do know is...
Well, the winner's fighting him.
Yeah.
Simple as.
Yeah. And that's going to be a hard fight for him to come straight back into. So I will say about that Cray, he's the one that I'm like, you could be brilliant. You could be, average. I don't know. Same goes for all of them. Ace Musa, I don't know anything about him, but one thing I have seen is he was in the Winkerbank gym in one of his videos. And that straight away, as someone who, I love Prince Nazim, Kell Brook, the amount of fighters that have come out of that gym, I looked at that and I was like, okay, so you're going to be a problem.
Well, serious then.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the Tasmanian Devil, this is one we were talking about before. This is ironic because when opponents were getting spoke about sort of thing, and it looked like he was going to be one of them, his name was mentioned, and I was like, the Tasmanian Devil is the Tasmanian Devil that I know. So how ironic is this? We're fighting in a tournament that, we don't know where it's going to be yet, but it might not even be in England, right? I'm going to end up fighting in the same tournament as a guy that I used to fight on the unlicensed scene with. I know the Tasmanian Devil.
Didn't he put weight on and have a break and then come back or something?
He put about 6 stone on.
Yeah.
Now listen, I'm not quite Ricky Hatton levels, but I like a pint and a bit of pizza in between my fights, but 6 stone's just off the chart, isn't it? But respect to him for being able to fluctuate in weight and get that weight back down. I've boxed on the same night as him. We've boxed in the same venue, on the same night, on the same card. There's actually a little poster in my gym that I train in, one of my old posters from one of my fights, and just directly below me is the Tasmanian Devil.
The fucking poster on this is wicked.
Oh, it's unreal, isn't it?
Credit to the graphic lads at Misfits. I love that poster. It's so legit.
Yeah.
Like that's something you could fucking frame that.
And then the Argentinian King, don't really know anything about him.
He looks quite slick. I've seen a few of his moves. I was like, all right. And he's also, I think he might have been training with some of the Misfits lads.
Right, okay.
So he's been sparring some of those guys. So yeah, I mean, mate, this is going to be a fucking ride. And again, you mentioned it before, but it just sort of jogged my memory. Dean's injured. And he's got I think it's a hand injury, right? Which
hand and shoulder.
His shoulder got dislocated in the last fight. So, shout out to him. I do hope he comes back 100% because, I know that you'd want him to be 100% in the ring. But, whoever he fights, like you've said, to come back from a double injury and fight someone who will be a savage, whoever wins this is a straight up legit. It's a hell of a fucking thing to come back to. No warm-up. So, yeah, we're going to find out who the true king of the lightweight division is, mate. I can't wait.
One man we just failed to mention there. It's just come into my head. Baby Hulk as well. He's another one from the street fighting background. Yeah. Small guy. He will have...
Looks like he's got power.
Yeah. He'll have that small man strength. I used to back myself to have that when I was going in there with middleweights and stuff like that. And ironically, I think me and Yodi will be the biggest guys in this tournament because of the weight class in it.
The guy's 5 foot.
5 foot, yeah.
5 foot beast, though.
That's one you got to watch out for. There's a lot of talent in it, man. As I say, the winner hopefully go on and get a shot at Dean. Am I convinced that happens? I'm not too sure. But what I do know is whoever wins this tournament, you're a star. You're one of the biggest names on Misfits all of a sudden if you win this tournament. And then when you're looking at that, listen, I said I didn't think that Dean wanted to fight me. Dean pretty didn't want to fight me, before I'd even made my debut on Misfits, because in Dean's eyes, rightly so, who's Joey Knight? Once I win this tournament, There's going to be a lot of money on the table for that fight, and you could target Jose Aldo, you could target some of these ex-MMA guys or whatever, but realistically, the fans are going to want to see you in there with a live opponent over 5-6 rounds who comes in with real belief, throwing hell for leather at you, a big lightweight as well. You see me stood opposite Dean. I'm big at lightweight. So let's see. I've got a fair few fights that I need to get through first. I'm very, very confident that I will go into this tournament and win it. Let's see what happens, man.
Do you know what it is? On the Dean thing, though, I know he has these Ryan Garcias and Shakur Stevenson's chirping at him, and well done for getting that. Like, so much respect, because to be on their radar, that shows the platform Misfits is. And Misfits has given him that, right? And credit to everyone involved, but equally, you've still got to, for me, before you go and take on the rest of the world, you've got a division to finish off and clear out. And it's all well and good tweeting Ryan Garcia and all of these people, but if you haven't cleared out your division in Misfits, then you're nowhere near ready to be talking to these kind of people. So if I'm his advisors, I'd be going, prove your point, be the king of that division, undisputed, right? Because it will be up for dispute when someone's the interim belt holder. And then you go big. Do you know what I mean? Because right now, I still think, what has he had, 4 Misfits fights? And you know, only Waleed was the real test out of those, aside from the tag team fight, which is a bit of a different vibe. And I hope he does it. I hope he proves it and goes and puts it on the line. And then we'll find out who the number 1 is. Yeah.
I'm excited for it. Listen, I've got to thank yourself for the opportunity of helping me, getting me into this tournament.
Big up Mams Taylor.
Big up Mams Taylor.
Yep.
Misfits, the Zone Boxing. Not long now until we find out who the best lightweight in the division is. Once all said and done this year, we'll have an answer to it. I'll see you on the next one.